All right, today we're diving into something pretty fascinating. It's where modern data science crashes right into ancient scripture. It's called the Elton Anomaly. And the claim is, well, it's that there's a hidden mathematical pattern in one of the most famous books ever. So let's unpack this thing.
Okay, so what is the Elton Anomaly? I mean, the name itself sounds like it's straight out of a sci-fi novel, right? But its roots? They're actually in the pages of one of the most influential books in all of history. So before your mind goes to, supernatural codes and conspiracies, let's just pause. At its heart, the Elton Anomaly is really just a huge, incredibly organized data project. Seriously, its whole goal is to take modern data analysis and point it at this ancient text in a totally new way. The name itself is actually the first clue. So let's break it down and see what it tells us about the pattern they're looking for. All right, so here's the official definition. The Elton Anomaly is a purported numerical pattern found in the text of the King James Bible. And, that word purported is key here. It means this is a theory, a claim, and that's exactly what we're here to explore.
If you look at the full title, you get even more clues. It's often written out as the Elton Anomaly KJB 7:7. KJB, pretty straightforward, right? That's the King James Bible. But the second part, 7 to the power of 7, well, that equals 823,543. And this focus on the number 7, it's literally the key to this whole thing.
So when you put all that together, you've got this ancient religious text and this super specific mathematical idea. What you get is a really bold claim. They're suggesting that a deliberate mathematical structure, all based on the number 7, is actually woven right into the very words of the Bible. Okay, claiming there's a hidden code. That's a huge claim. So naturally, you'd expect some proof, right? Well, let's take a look at the evidence they've actually put forward. And that's really the million-dollar question for something like this. I mean, what does the proof even look like? Is it a dense academic paper, a book, or something else? Well, what's interesting is that the so-called proof isn't just one single document. Nope. It's an entire online library, a collection of more than 10 different data files. And get this, they're totally free for anyone to just download and check out for themselves. This is where they lay it all out. And this is where you find the heart of the whole anomaly claim. The project says these files show that the total number of words in the King James Bible, it's divisible by 7. They also say that specific words, like God, for instance, show up a number of times that's also a multiple of 7. It all comes down to these incredibly detailed word counts. And just to give you an idea of the scale we're talking about, look at this number, 1,200. That's how many pages are in just one of the files in that library, the verse-by-verse breakdown. And inside that file, they're claiming that even the structure of the book, like how many verses are in certain sections, also follows this rule of 7s. And they really made sure anyone can get their hands on this stuff. The files are available in all sorts of formats, PDFs, plain text files, even spreadsheets for Excel and Google Sheets. The message here seems pretty clear. They're not just telling you these patterns are there, they're literally giving you the raw data and saying, go ahead, check the math for yourself. Which, of course, brings us to the biggest question of all. Why? I mean, why go to all this trouble? Why create this huge free library of data just to count words in a book? Let's dig into the motivation behind it all. Seriously, the amount of work that went into this is just monumental. So what's the end game here? What was the real driving force behind the Elton Anomaly project? Well, if you go to the project's homepage, they give you a pretty big clue. It's this quote from Psalm 119. Basically, it talks about how human perfection has limits, but that God's commandment is exceeding broad, infinite, huge, complex. This really sets the stage, giving a clear spiritual reason for all this data crunching. And then they just come right out and say it. This whole project isn't about getting academic credit or making money. Nope, it's an act of devotion. It's designed to show what the creators believe is a divine fingerprint. Their goal, in their own words, is simple. May God get all the glory. So, as we start to wrap this up, let's kind of zoom out for a second and look at the bigger picture. We get the claims now, but what does a project like this really tell us about our search for meaning in data, in scripture, in everything?
When you get right down to it, the Elton Anomaly really lives in two different worlds at the same time. On one side, it's a totally modern data project. You've got spreadsheets, raw text files, all making these specific, checkable claims about numbers. But on the other side, it's fundamentally an act of faith. It's a search for divine order, and it's not really presented as an argument to be won, but more like an offering.
And that really leaves us with one last thought. This human need to find patterns, it's incredibly powerful. It doesn't matter if we're looking at scripture or the stars or just massive spreadsheets. The Elton anomaly is a perfect example of that drive. And it makes you wonder, when we look so hard for these hidden patterns, what is it we're really searching for?